services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at xfinity.com.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mark Auerbach with JPEG Luca on an ArtsBeat Golden Age of Radio special. And sitting with me is Mark Gianfrido, who is the creator and the director of The Big Broadcast, coming to Mount Holyoke College Saturday, March 7th, 2 performances at 2 and 7:30. And hopefully soon we will have Brian Lapis, who is the MC of that program.
Oh, he's here now.
He is here.
Yes.
Good morning, Brian.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So we have Mark and Brian and Jay, and we're here to talk about The Big Broadcast. It's the 15th edition of this wonderful recreation of a 1940s live radio broadcast with the music of the era, which is mostly swing music and big band sounds, and commercials of the day, and a skit or two. I don't know what they call radio dramas, serial dramas.
That's right.
And more. So we're really glad to have you guys here. And I've got to thank JPEG Luca, first of all, because we taped a program about The Big Broadcast a couple of weeks ago, and there was an equipment failure, and most of it was lost. So a special thanks to Mark and Brian for getting up this early and coming back so we could do the show live. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
No, it's an honor to have you, and I'm more than happy to give up a piece of my show for another version of our golden age of radio.
Well, The Big Broadcast does really salute the golden age of radio when you think about it. I mean, we don't have radio programs like this anymore, let alone television variety shows.
Not at all. It's really a kind of a lost art form, and so we enjoy bringing it to everybody. But I think the audience is bowled over by the fact that it's being presented to them by students who really have no connection to the period at all. But it's really fascinating to them, and over the last 15 years, this show has become pretty beloved by the community, and it's a signature event at the college now. So, how did you come up with the idea of doing this? Well, certainly the idea wasn't a new thing, but what it kind of, the genesis of it came from a cabaret troupe that I had back in the 1990s called Puttin' on the Ritz. And we used to do theme concerts, and I kind of came up with the thought that, maybe it might be kind of fun to do something period 1940s. And so we started, I think we did like 3 or 4 of them. They were called The Big Broadcast of 1939, or somewhat like the movies. I think there's a few movies that are with titles like that. And so we would pick a year, and we would do medleys of songs from movies and musicals from that particular year. And after the cabaret group disbanded, and I formed the jazz ensembles at Mount Holyoke, I figured at some point I would like to try this idea on a grander scale. We used to do it sort of on a cabaret level, at different venues around the Pioneer Valley, and but to actually do it on the stage at Chapin Auditorium is a real thrill, because it just looks like that era of golden age of entertainment.
Yeah, Brian, you got involved in it. I think from what I read in a press release somewhere, it's your 13th year doing this?
Yeah, I've been doing this since 2007. We had a news anchor at our station, Dan Elias, who somehow got involved with the big broadcast. And then he kind of got tired of it, and I have heard that he was doing this. I was like, wow, this sounds like a really fun gig. So I leveraged my connections with Mount Holyoke College to get in touch with Mark, and that's all she wrote. It's been history ever since.
Now, Brian, before you got into television and weather and all those good things, you started in radio. When you started doing radio, were there people in the studio that had actually worked in the golden age of radio? When I started, there were a couple of engineers that had worked in the 40s and 50s, and they were, like at retirement age, and they would talk about these great audiences would come in and up-and-coming singers, and it was done live in front of like 500 to 1,000 people.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you bring that up, Mark, because I hadn't thought about it until now, but the guy that owned the radio station where I started in Willimantic, Connecticut, actually was a golden age of radio guy by the name of Herb Rice, and he was kind of on the management side of things. He actually was the person who discovered Don Knotts, of all things. So, yeah, right? Anyway, so, yeah, I guess I do have a bit of a link to the golden age of radio. That guy, Herb Rice, was certainly a golden ager. So, but for the most part, the people that I worked with were contemporary, 1980s record-playing disc jockeys.
When I started in radio in this market, it was in the mid-1980s. And there was one, I started at WSPR, which had been purchased. It was a mainstay station in Springfield for years and years. It had been purchased by a company that was beginning the format of talk radio. And they would have a variety of various people doing political talk, lifestyle talk. And I was brought in to do like an Arts Beat kind of program that I do now. And one of the guys that came in that did sports had actually worked in a local variety program where local singers would come in to WSPR when they were on Chestnut Street in Springfield, and they would do half an hour of live music. They'd interview somebody and they would play a song or two. And that's completely gone these days from radio. And it's actually gone from television. The variety shows like The Ed Sullivan Show or Hollywood Palace or Donahue that would bring on, singers, and Merv Griffin. That's all in the past.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of remarkable to think that, most of the TV studios at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, the shows that NBC runs out of there, a lot of those studios were radio studios that had room for orchestras and casts for these radio dramas. And, yeah, all of it's gone. And I think that's what's kind of fun about this show is that it is not only unique in the Valley, but it's a throwback to the prime time entertainment of its era. People would gather around the radio, just like people gather around the television now to watch This Is Us or The Bachelor, and they would listen to these radio shows, and the greatest stars of the day would hang out with Fred Kelly and Matt Morgan on WJAZ. So we're trying to recreate that, and hopefully we do a pretty good job of it.
And I don't know, Mark, the music of the 40s, the swing music, has never really fallen out of favor, and it's come back. And one of the things as driving in this morning, I was thinking, when did I first become aware of this music. And I think it's when Bette Midler recorded Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, which was an Andrews Sisters thing. And then
70s.
in the 70s. And then on her album, she did Lullaby of Broadway. And she brought back some of it. And Linda Ronstadt and somebody else.
Nelson Riddle.
He did the Nelson Riddle things. And so the music's never gone out of style in terms of being brought back and put on the air.
This is true. It's and of course the students they really love the music because it's got a vitality. It crackles. It's danceable. It just kind of gets people tapping their toes, and there's really nothing like listening to a huge, this huge sound of a big band roaring, especially on the Chapin Auditorium stage, Personally speaking, I know that when I was a kid, I didn't know too much about the music, but there was something about the Glenn Miller Band that I absolutely loved. And I don't know, it was the trombones, the clarinets, the that kind of sound just always appealed to me. And so to be able to do that sort of thing with the students is great. I should also mention that we found out last year that Glenn Miller and his orchestra actually appeared on the Chapin Auditorium stage in 1939. They played for a senior ball. They did a short college tour. This was in between. They just had their big hit, In the Mood. And Glenn wasn't sure where to go with the band, what kind of sound he was looking for. So he came up with Marilyn Hutton, and they did an East Coast tour of colleges. And so it's really cool. And of course, the students they can't get over the fact that Glenn Miller, the great Glenn Miller, once walked that same stage that they're performing on.
That's totally cool. We're talking about hearing this music from the past. In the late 70s, Bob Fosse created a musical for Broadway called Dancin'. And it won a Tony Award and all that for choreography. And one of the big numbers in it was Benny Goodman's Sing, 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 which was the showstopper. And if you go look up on YouTube for it, the music is fabulous. But if you go look it up on YouTube, the dancing that Bob Fosse created for Sing, Sing, Sing just makes that song sizzle. And theater people go back and forth to YouTube to look at the old Tony Awards, excerpts from hit musicals, and they always go to that. So go to YouTube and find Sing, Sing, Sing. What are the songs or some of the songs that are going to be on this year's big broadcast?
Well, speaking of Benny Goodman, and like you mentioned, that Sing, Sing, Sing is just such an iconic tune. I think most people sort of identify the 1940s with that particular tune. He had another lesser-known tune that actually was featured in a Disney cartoon called Make Mine Music. The tune is called All the Cats Join In, and it's like a 6-minute romp. It's really incredible, and it's normally heard as an instrumental, but I've actually returned the vocal parts to the middle part of the tune, and we have an octet singing the actual the lyrics, the tune in the middle of it. We're also doing things like How High the Moon. We have a wonderful baritone sax feature for our big band coordinator Lauren. Body and Soul, another great ballad, and probably for the first act, the pièce de résistance is this on the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe, which is an Andrews Sisters arrangement that I believe, after doing a lot of research, has not been heard since it originally aired on the Kraft Music Hall in 1945, September of 1945. I looked up, there's this wonderful compendium, and the author's name escapes me, but a fellow out in California did a whole biography on the Andrews Sisters, and I looked up throughout the entire book looking for about this tune and whether it ever got recorded, and apparently was never recorded on Decca Records. It was only featured on a radio show and on a couple of radio shows, and so I've basically transcribed the tune, and when people come hear this, they're going to hear it they haven't heard it on radio ever since. So it's going to be pretty cool.
We actually found a recording of on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, which we'll play before we go into the break.
Probably the radio recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But it's a song from the movie musical The Harvey Girls.
That's right. Yeah.
The Andrews Sisters weren't in that, were they?
They were not. No, I think it's that Judy Garland. I think
it was Judy Garland and Angela Lansbury and somebody else.
Yeah, it's a great tune, and of course, it was also featured by Rosemary Clooney. She had a big hit with it. But the Andrews Sisters version of it is pretty typical. Vic Schoen, I believe, did the arrangement because it just sounds like him. This to the best of my knowledge, and it really kind of just rocks.
Well, Brian Lapis, every year, or at least for the last few years, you've surprised people with your ability to sing and dance, and you and Mark usually do some kind of buddy song from the 40s. What song are you doing this year?
We are doing Way Down Yonder in New Orleans.
That's right.
Which is a fun little song, and there's the Pièce de Résistance, and then there's the PA. Well, yeah.
He always cuts himself up. He's so great. We have so much fun singing together.
I was really surprised the first time that I've been working with you guys on the big broadcast, and I think this is my 9th year, maybe 10th year. But when Brian and you sang the first time, I was like, wow, that was just so cool. And I can't remember what song it was, but it was a train song or a traveling song.
Probably Alabama Bound.
Alabama Bound. I thought that was like too cool. Brian, how long does it take you to rehearse to sing?
We usually get together, I don't know, when do we do this, Mark? The show is written in mid-January.
Yep.
So we've probably been rehearsing since the first week of February.
Yep.
We'll get together a couple of days a week for a half an hour at a shot and throw it together. And actually, knock on wood, the song is coming along pretty well, and hopefully we won't embarrass ourselves on March 7th at Chapin Auditorium.
Well, now you play Fred Kelly, the MC. Was Fred Kelly a singer in his day? Did he record anything?
We'd have to look in the archives, but I am sure that there are a couple of flops that Fred Kelly recorded. Just to kind of stroke his own ego. He probably talked some record executive into, opening up some time in a recording studio, and he probably, did something.
I love the elaborate backstory.
Yeah, I had heard that Fred Kelly had recorded several things, and then when television came in the 50s, that Fred Kelly had a variety show of his own before he moved on to dramatic things. And I think his last television appearance was like in the early 90s. Wasn't he in Law and Order?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was in Law and Order. Anyway, we're going to take a brief break. We need to acknowledge the underwriters here and to thank Jay Pagluka for loaning us his hour today on the golden age of radio.
We can only see his arm.
He's here. He's right here. But we do have a few tickets available for the big broadcast that we'd love to give away today.
One set is already gone.
The performance is Saturday, March 7th at 2 or 7:30. And Peter Coles, our chief engineer, is going to give you the phone number to call in. And you can call in and request a pair of tickets for either the afternoon or the evening performance. And as we roll into our break to acknowledge our underwriters, we're going to play On the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe as performed by the Andrews Sisters, which is one of the numbers in the big broadcast.
And
we'll
the number
be right back.
to call in for tickets is 642-9415.
Say that number again.
642-9415 in the friendly 413 area code.
Okay, so here's the Andrews Sisters.
Do you hear that whistle down the line? I figure that it's engine number 49. She's the only one that'll sound that way on the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe. See the old smoke rising round the bend. I reckon that she knows she's gonna meet a friend. Folks around these parts get the time of day from the Atchison, Santa Fe, here she comes. Ooh, hey Jim, you better get the ring. Ooh, she's got a list of passengers that's pretty big, and they'll all want lifts to Brown's Hotel. There's lots of them traveling for quite a spell, all the way from Philadelphia on the axis in Topeka and the Santa Fe. Here comes 49, just a puffin' and a steamin' coming on down the line. She's due in today on the axis in Topeka and the Santa Fe. Do you hear that whistle? Do you hear that whistle? And I figure that it's engine number 49. She's the only one that'll sound that way on the axis in Topeka and the Santa Fe. And they all want to lift to Brown's Hotel, 'cause lots of them been traveling for quite a spell, all the way from Philadelphia on the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to Artsbeat Radio on the golden age of radio. Our thanks to JPEG Luca for loaning us his time slot today here on 89.5 FM WSKB and Westfield Community Programming Channel 15. We're broadcasting today from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and our guests today here in the studio are Mark Gianfrido, who's the creator and the founder of the Big Broadcast, and on the line, Brian Lapis, well known as a meteorologist, who plays the MC, song and dance man Fred Kelly. So we're going back to 1942 and the Big Broadcast, and it happens next Saturday, March 7th, 2 o'clock and 7:30 p.m. at Chapin Auditorium at Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley. Tickets are available in advance through the Fine Arts Center box office at UMass, 545-2511, or at the Odyssey Bookshop in the Village Commons in South Hadley, and you'll also be able to buy tickets for both performances at the door. And gentlemen, I understand this year we have a guest artist. We've had one in the past. This one is an alum of Mount Holyoke College who was an original founding member of the jazz ensembles.
This is true. She was Caitlin Parsons way back when. She's since married. Her name is Caitlin Mercer now. She comes from the Baltimore area. She's got a group called Blue Hippopotamus, and she's a chanteuse-styled singer. She also is a very talented bassist. So she's going to be playing bass and singing in the show, and she's going to be doing Peggy Lee's Black Coffee, which is one of my favorite slow swingers. And we're also going to do a duet together, that great old chestnut by Frank Lesser and Kay Kaiser, on a slow boat to China. So it's going to be lots of fun. We're looking forward to her coming up. Last year we started featuring an alum or a former member of the jazz ensembles in the big broadcast. So this is our second year of doing that, and it's very exciting not only for the students but for me to be bringing back people from our past who we owe a lot of a debt to for helping get the ensemble started.
We should say I've been listening to Caitlin's music on her YouTube channel. Her name is Caitlin, Caitlin Jane, Jaene. Her music is fabulous.
Yeah, she's very, very talented. You mentioned Linda Ronstadt before. She actually kind of cut her teeth on those Linda Ronstadt, Nelson Riddle songs. And she really was one of the people also that not only was in the original octet of people in the jazz ensemble, but she also started this business of singing, including singing with us. This was before we actually had a vocal jazz contingent. So we would have we would open it up to members of the jazz ensemble to audition to do songs, vocal songs with us. And Caitlin was one of the first people because she has a lovely voice, and really, so she's kind of the genesis for the beginning of the vocal jazz choir too.
Has she come up to rehearse yet, or is she coming in towards the end?
She's coming in towards the end of the project. Yeah, she'll be in 4 days or so before the actual show.
We're going to play some of her music today during the course of this hour. Brian, what are some of the songs that you've done in the past with the big broadcast?
Well, we talked about Alabama Bound. We've done There's No Business Like Show Business, Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better. Geez, Mark, we were just talking about this the other day. What did we do last year? What was the name of that song again?
We did a Western swing song,
That's right.
"Stay a Little Longer" by Bob Wills. It's a cool song, and we did it something different because we had a fiddle player, Zoe. I can't remember her last name.
Zoe Darrow.
Darrow, thank you, Zoe Darrow. A Celtic fiddler actually from this area, and but she also was kind enough to join us and play some Western swing with us.
Yeah, she's done a lot of stuff in the area, and Caitlin Jane performs primarily up and down the East Coast, but I think she's based in Philadelphia now.
Yep. She does a lot of Philly and Baltimore. Yeah.
And she's got a group called Blue Hippopotamus, and really check out her YouTube channel or her website because she does a lot of music of the big band and the swing era, but she also does some contemporary stuff. And I've been listening to a lot of her stuff since she told me she was coming. She's great.
Yeah, she's very talented and very humble too. Just a real sweet person. When I called her to ask her if she would participate in the show, she said, "Oh my God, I'm honored," And I'm like, "Well, we just would love to have you because really, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring back people who as I said before, have had a significant what's the word?" Just helped us out along the way.
Brian, I'm curious. Did Fred Kelly ever make any recordings during the swing era?
Oh yeah. I mean, he was terrible, but again, Fred was able to leverage his influence with record companies of the era, and to indulge his own ego, he definitely made a couple of recordings, and I think there might actually be a spoken word recording of some of Fred Kelly's comedy work as well. So it's out there. You just have to look really hard for it because the recording companies probably issued about 10 records of each of those.
I heard that somewhere on YouTube you could find Fred Kelly's medley of weather-related music like Stormy Weather and Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. When did he record that?
That was done in the early 1950s, I believe. toward the end of Fred Kelly's career when he started guest starring on mediocre game shows.
Match Game, yeah, he was on Match Game.
And I think wasn't he a sidekick to Merv Griffin for several years?
There you go. I mean, Merv Griffin was a good friend of Fred Kelly's, and
I
definitely brought him into the golden age of TV.
I have to say that people are gonna. I'm a little concerned here because I do notice that on the credit there, Fred Kelly is spelled Kelly on the side there above, right below. It's actually Kelley.
Well, Dionne Warwick went to an astrologer once, and and the astrologer told her that if she added an E to the end of Warwick, her career would succeed in recording. So Fred Kelly today insisted that we take out the second E because his astrologer said, if you want to be a hit on community radio, you really don't need two E's in your name. But he's going back to his original spelling.
We want to throw people off the trail, right, Mark?
Right. He's going back to his original spelling for the big broadcast.
But there actually was a Fred. That Gene Kelly's brother was named Fred. There's no relation here to this Fred Kelly. Fred Kelly was a dancer, just like Gene Kelly, and I believe he only made one appearance with his brother Gene in a movie. I can't remember the song, but I know it had something to do with nothing to do with Jaws, but something about swimming with bow-legged women or something like that. I can't remember what the song was.
Oh my gosh! Anyway, I think we ought to move to some music. We've been talking about Caitlin Jane, and here is her recording of Caravan, and after that we'll be acknowledging some underwriters who make programming like Arts Beat Radio and the Golden Age of Radio possible here on 89.5 FM WSKB and Westfield Community Programming. I'm Mark Auerbach, your Arts Beat reporter. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. In the studio with me is Mark Gianfrido, the creator and director of this year's big broadcast coming on March 7th, and on the line is Brian Lapis, who performs as MC Fred Kelly in this year's big broadcast. We'll be right back.
And stars above that shine so bright, the mystery of their fading light. Beside me here beneath coming true. Within our desert caravan,
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes and Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat Radio and the golden age of radio today here on 89.5 FM WSKB and Westfield Community Programming Channel 15. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. With me today here in the studio is Mark Gianfrido, the creator and director of The Big Broadcast. And with us on the phone is Brian Lapis, who stars as MC Fred Kelly. He's in it for his 13th year. This is the 15th year of The Big Broadcast. And we have a couple of tickets to give away if you'd like to see the performance on Saturday, March 7th at either 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 7:30 at night. And Peter Coles will give you the phone number to call to get those tickets.
642-9415, or you can email us at, or look us up on the Facebook page, or email us at peg@cityofwestfield.org, and I will get you those tickets. We have two pairs that are already given away.
Okay, so there's your chance to see it. And if you don't call in now and you want to see it, tickets are available in advance at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley or on the phone and online at the University of Massachusetts Fine Arts Center box office, 413-545-2511 or fineartscenter.com. And tickets for both performances will also be available at the door if you get there early. So that's next Saturday, March 7th, 2 o'clock and 7:30 p.m. at Chapin Auditorium on the Mount Holyoke campus in South Hadley. If you come early, there's plenty of places to eat and drink in South Hadley, either before or after the show, and parking is free. But you want to get there early because there's some other events happening on the Mount Holyoke campus, and that parking will eventually run out. Chapin Auditorium is accessible. So if you have mobility issues, there's an elevator not only to the lobby level, to the balcony levels as well. So it's a great opportunity. It only comes once a year. And Brian Lapis, as weather person, has guaranteed the weather's going to be perfect. And that immediately following the 7:30 show, when you go to bed, you're going to wake up the next day and daylight savings time will magically appear. So it'll be light later, thanks to Brian Lapis, says Fred Kelly. Brian,
it's a pleasure for me to provide that as a public service.
Yeah, you just do so much for this show. Brian, you've worked with these students now for 13 years. Do they get the golden age of radio by the time you guys are on stage?
Yeah, this is something that we probably don't talk about enough. Mark and I do all of these appearances, and it's really the students that make this show spectacular. Not to take anything away from Mark, but the students really immerse themselves in this 1940s culture, the hair, the costumes, and lest we forget that the students spend a couple of weeks of their winter break writing this whole show. So they write all the dialogue that Fred Kelly speaks, and Mark picks the music, the students really add the flavor to this show and provide the great dialogue, and they write this radio serial every year, and every year it's a little different. This year, I believe we're doing the detective serial, right, Mark?
That's right. Yes, my name is Sterling.
And hilarity ensues. It's always very funny, and yes, the students really do immerse themselves in the 1940s culture, and it is fascinating to me that we have some of the most progressive students, in the country at Mount Holyoke College, and there's this fascinating, I don't know if you would call it irony. I guess a better word is juxtaposition of the progressive 21st century students doing 1940s culture. So, there's some giggles when we talk about Camel cigarettes and, wives making their husbands happy by using the finest baking soda and flour for their cooking and all that sort of stuff, and some eye rolls as well sometimes. So anyway, the students are obviously an integral part of this whole process, and they do a really fabulous job getting into the 1940s. And really, if they didn't immerse themselves in this and totally own it, the show wouldn't work.
Let me ask you another question. You've been doing this for 13 years. I know that you have somewhat of a background, that you've done some musical theater and music in your past. Do you read music?
It's a great question. I remember when I guest starred on a program for the Springfield Symphony, and Kevin Rhodes says, you read music, right? And I said, kinda. I mean, it's not a muscle that I flex every day, so I can fake reading music pretty well. So I guess the answer to your question is I sort of read music. I can get by. If I was doing this more often, I think I would read music a little bit better.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because I know you've done a couple of performances with the Springfield Symphony. One was Peter and the Wolf, and I can't remember what the other one was that you narrated. But you'd have to have a sense of where to speak and where not to. In the same way, doing the big broadcast, it's very tightly woven that you have to have a sense of knowing when the music's going to end and have some concept of that, right?
Yeah, and I think one of my skills is watching Mark. So when I perform with the Springfield Symphony, I watch Kevin, and when I'm with the big broadcast, I definitely pay attention to what Matt Morgan is doing, the band leader. So hopefully I come in on time and get out on time and all that sort of good stuff. So
and I guess you could say you've been really lucky to work with the two of the best maestros in the 413.
Without question, Fred Kelly has been fortunate in his career to, latch on to the coattails of some very famous and very competent musical directors. Yeah.
And since you've been doing this for 13 years, you've very rarely does the big broadcast ever repeat a song that it's done before. Is there a song over the years that you've emceed as Fred Kelly that you had never heard before, that is stuck in your mind as a great piece of music from the swing era?
Yeah, Mark, is it Pennsylvania 65000, the Hotel Pennsylvania song? What's it called?
Yes, that's exactly it. Pennsylvania 65000, named after the Hotel Pennsylvania in New York City, the place where the Glenn Miller Band used to stay when they were doing performances at the Paramount Theater.
So that's one. I'm sure that after we hang up the phone here, I'll have a whole bunch of others. But some of the Andrews Sisters songs, the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe, I'm a big fan of. I think that's a really fun song as well. Three Caballeros.
Oh yeah, that's a great one too.
That's a fun song. So there are many. And what's great about this show is that I think when you think about big band music, a lot of the recordings are kind of crackly and kind of tinny, but to hear this music live in Chapin, I mean, it just fills the room. And Mark does such a great job with the band and getting some amazing performers in there. You really got to come in this type of music, just like the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. It can't be told; it must be heard. You've got to go to this show and listen to how this music just fills up the room. It really hits you right in the chest. It's really fun.
I was going to say that, we listen to recordings all the time, whether it's YouTube or we download an album or something like that. But hearing it live is a completely different thing. When I go to the Springfield Symphony and I've heard a piece of music before, it's been engineered to sound perfect. And of course, in the 40s during the swing era, they didn't have that technology. But when you hear it live, all of a sudden you might hear a specific instrument or some of the things that the composer originally intended to hear. And in the case of the big broadcast, hearing some of this music from the 1940s, the recording wasn't fabulous then. There were limitations in what they could do, but hearing it done live, and Chapin Auditorium is acoustically a really good place to hear music. It just takes on a different thing. It envelops you in the same way that going to the symphony at Symphony Hall does. It's a great experience.
Yeah, and I should also give some shout outs to our sound engineers who are with us every year, Dan Richardson and James LeGrand. They work together like clockwork in getting not only a great sound in the hall, but a good archival recording for us to refer to when we're putting on this show. Chapin is really, really a wonderful place. I'd say magical place to do this show, and there's something always special about March when we put this show on, and when we start singing the WJAZ jingle. I know for the students, they love this little jingle that I put together many years ago, as I said, way back in the 90s, and it's one of the things in the show that the students love to sing about being on this radio station, this fictitious radio station, WJAZ.
I wish I had planned to use that music today, because that's just so fabulous. You've arranged a lot of the music for the singers. How do you do that? I mean, are you going back to a particular recording? Are you going back to the sheet music? Where do you turn to recreate it for the jazz ensembles?
Well, some of the things now I've been able to find, there's a couple of companies around the world that are specializing in authentic arrangements of this music. But more often than not, like for instance in the case of the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe, which the music just does not exist, I just basically listen to the recording and I transcribe it. Now that's, I guess I would be lying if I didn't say, it's hard. It really is. It's very, very difficult to do because, as you said, in those days, in the 1940s, most of the recording was monaural. I mean, everything that you heard, basically you would have the big band or the whatever the accompanying orchestral ensemble would be in a room, and there'd be one big microphone in the room, and the Andrews Sisters would be in front of that microphone singing, so they would be the primarily heard in the recording, but everything else is in the background, and the trumpets are cutting through, but sometimes you can't hear what the saxes and the trombones are doing. I've been doing this show for 15 years, so I kind of have become a bit of a I don't know. I'd say I'm an expert on the way that Vic Schoen writes his arrangements. He was the principal orchestrator for the Andrews Sisters and wrote all of their vocal arrangements as well as their instrumental stuff. So when I hear the music, I kind of know now exactly how he's writing for the saxes, how he's writing for the trumpets, and so I've learned a lot just doing this project for 15 years on how to write music in that genre. So
and of course, in your career, you've accompanied a lot of people that were making music in the early days of TV. I mean, when I look at your bio, some of the people that you've worked with down, in your beginning of your career and stuff. Now you also, in addition to the jazz ensembles, work with the Young at Heart Chorus. And these are people who grew up with the big band era and stuff like that. Have they given you any anecdotes about the music that you're performing with the big broadcast?
They haven't given me any anecdotes, but they have told me about some of their favorite tunes, and I've actually I've made note of things because they've said made suggestions to me that I definitely want to use for future big broadcasts. They actually do tunes which you wouldn't expect them to do. If people know the Young at Heart Chorus, they kind of specialize in left of center, shall we say. They do things like Talking Heads and David Bowie and all sorts of things that you wouldn't expect that they would sing. So working with them is a blast because I get to do rock and roll, I get to do progressive rock, I get to do all sorts of music that I don't normally do with the college students, surprisingly.
So you're teaching people at the Young at Heart course, which is a course made up primarily of people 70 and up.
I think the median age is 83, I believe.
And they've been featured in a documentary. They've toured nationally and all of that.
Yeah.
But you're teaching them music that they most likely never heard growing up, obviously. Yeah. And in the big broadcast, you're teaching music to young singers who probably have never heard big band and swing. So you're it's kind of cross-generational in every way.
It's pretty cool. I think I live a real charmed life. I'm very, very thrilled that I get to do I get to work with people from all sorts of experience, people who are beginners, people who are professional, people who are semi-pros. It's really wonderful. I'm thrilled.
So 40 or 50 years from now, Brian and I can audition for the Young at Heart chorus.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, Brian, but at that point, we'll be able to introduce music of the 60s and 70s to them.
That's right. That's what the big broadcast will be, actually, at that time.
Brian, have you listened to any songs, or you and Mark talked about any songs you'd like to do in future years?
That's a great question. I have not necessarily, some of the musicals that I've done are more, Broadway type show tunes, are more in the line of the 50s. I think, for instance, Guys and Dolls. I performed in that musical when I was a little bit younger. It'd be fun to do one of those numbers, but unfortunately, that's outside of our era. For the big broadcast. So I leave the music selection to Mark. I think Mark does a really great job with that. And all of the stuff that Mark does is really, really amazing. I was just looking through some of the commercials that we're going to do, the authentic 1940s commercials. And we've got Prel shampoo and Buick and patty cake cookies. And this year, X-Lax is a proud sponsor of the big broadcast.
Yes. And I get to do that commercial.
So let me ask you, Brian, in your day job, have you ever done live commercials, or do they not do that in TV?
We don't really do that in TV anymore, which is a shame, because when you think about the 21st century, there's really no unadvertised space, and it would actually be fun to bring back the whole live commercial thing, because it would give a third dimension, or at least another dimension to sponsorships, instead of just kind of stacking up commercials in between the content. Having some of the local talent do commercials would be kind of fun. There was a time when Ed McMahon would do commercials on the Tonight Show.
Elpo.
Dog food commercials, whatever.
Yeah, Johnny used to do them too occasionally.
Yeah, so that's
yeah.
And those commercials, I remember them. And it's been a long time since Ed McMahon's done a commercial on the Tonight Show. So that would be fun to have that come back.
I remember in the early days of television, Fred Kelly doing the Pan American World Airways commercial. Pan Am makes the going great. And he would always be at the that weird TWA Pan Am terminal at Kennedy Airport doing the live stand-ups. I thought that was the best in early television.
Northwest Orient got very jealous about that, and I think they hired him away from...
Yeah, so, Fred Kelly never got to sing that song, Come Fly With Me. No, that's really a shame.
Sad.
We're about out of time here today, but first of all, I want to give you some information on the big broadcast. It is Saturday, March 7th at 2 o'clock and 7:30 p.m. at Chapin Auditorium at Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley. You can get tickets in advance at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley or at the UMass Fine Arts Center. Their phone number's 413-545-2511, or you can go to fineartscenter.com to order the tickets online. There are student and senior citizen discounts. If you've got grandparents or parents in their 80s and up, they may remember this music from their youth, and it's a great opportunity to bring back the golden age of radio. And we do have a couple of tickets available if you call in, and Peter Coles, our engineer, is going to give us the number to call, and you can have a choice of a pair of tickets to the matinee or the evening show.
642-9415 in the 413 area code if you're able to attend, or just email us at pegradmin@cityofwestfield.org.
So snag those tickets in advance, or if you don't get a chance to get them free here, you can buy them at the door. Our special thanks to Mark Gianfrido, who's the creator and the director of this year's big broadcast, and to Brian Lapis, who plays the role of MC Fred Kelly. Caitlin Jane will be the guest artist, and we're going to leave you today with a recording that she made with her band Blue Hippopotamus of the song that Peggy Lee made famous called Fever. You've been listening to Artsbeat Radio and the Golden Age of Radio here today on 89.5 FM WSKB and Westfield Community Programming Channel 15. We've been recording and broadcasting from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. Our engineer today is Peter Coles. I'm Mark Auerbach. Jay Pagluca from the Golden Age of Radio was here earlier. Thanks to all of them, and we'll see you on another edition of Artsbeat Radio in the near future. Up next, Caitlin Jane with Fever. Thanks for joining us.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. 'Cause when you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever. In the morning, fever all through the night. Sun lights up the daytime, moon lights up the night. I light up when you call my name, and you know I'm gonna treat you right. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever. In the morning, fever all through the night. Everybody's got the fever. This is something you all know. Fever isn't such a new thing. Fever started long ago. Romeo loved Juliet. Juliet, she felt the same. When he put his arms around her, he said, Julie, baby, you're my flame. You give me fever. When we kiss it, fever, with that flame in use. Fever, I'm a fire. Fever, yeah, I burn soon. Now you've listened to my story. Here's the point that I have made. chicks were meant to give you fever, be it Fahrenheit or centigrade, they'll give you fever. When you kiss them, fever, if you live and learn. Fever till you sizzle, oh what a lovely way to burn. Oh what a lovely way to burn. Oh what a lovely